Every caregiver has a story. This is Voices of Care, where real voices remind us we're never alone in this journey.
Welcome to Voices of Care. There are moments in life that split time into before and after. For today's guest, that moment came at 6:45 a.m. on a Saturday morning when a call from Singapore General Hospital changed everything. Her father's heart stopped beating for 12 long minutes. Doctors warned that even if he survived, there was a high chance he might never recognize his family again. What followed was a day filled with waiting, prayer, fear, and ultimately a miracle. Serene is a daughter, a caregiver, and a financial planner. But today's conversation isn't about profession, it's about perspective. Serene, thank you for trusting us with your story.
Thank you.
You shared something very publicly, and specifically 6:45 a.m. Saturday morning, that dreaded call came from SGH. Can you take us back in time at that moment? How did it feel when you heard those words? Rush down immediately.
At 6:45 a.m., we were all sound asleep, and actually, they called my mom. So my mom was in a shock, and she came knocking my door, and that woke us all up, and we were all in a state of shock. And all the nurses were saying is that he's not doing well. You need to come down now. So we were really in a shock.
So in moments like that, everything, life feels fragile as well, right? So what kept you going while waiting, especially during those hours when you're at Coffee Bean, just the time seems to be on a standstill.
Yes. So by the time we rushed down and see him, he was being wheeled off. So we only saw him for that split 1 minute.
Okay.
Where that was when the doctor told us it's either he don't survive, he survives, or he doesn't recognize us. So at 7:30, we found ourselves sitting at Coffee Bean so early in the morning, and there's nothing we can do. So we could just so we sat as a family and we just prayed, because if you don't pray, I think your thoughts will start to spiral down with all the what ifs.
So I guess it's a collective effort to motivate and keep each other
Yes,
positive
yes.
in that sense at that point
Yes,
in
it
time,
is.
right? And you described that waiting, that duration as excruciating. You prayed, you wept, and you lean on faith and community. And I think this is important. How important was having people around you, at the point in time? But how do you think that helped you get over that difficult period?
So I had a pastor that once preached that your presence is a present. And I think during at that time, that word became so true, because when messages came in, people called to pray with you, or friends just turn up at Coffee Bean to have coffee, and inevitably when you're with friends, you will smile, you start to crack jokes here and there. Just makes you feel a little encouraged, and you're not so alone, and things don't look so bad. So that was really very important.
Now, if you look at it from a caregiver's perspective, do you think that sometimes caregivers underestimate how much support we actually need
Oh yeah,
until a crisis like that forces them to accept it?
absolutely. I think because we are trained to be on high alert mode, right? So when you're on that high alert mode, you tend to train your mind to be strong, right? And sometimes I think strong translates to you need to do everything, right? So one of the things that I learned about this whole journey is asking for help, receiving help is not weakness. It's
Okay.
actually wisdom.
Right.
It's actually wisdom to be able to say, yes, at this point of time, you can come in and do this for me. You can come in and do this. And we shouldn't feel guilty. Even if, say, my friend comes in and say, hey, let me sit beside your dad for half an hour. You go take a toilet break. Just go down and take a walk. That means a lot also.
And it's so interesting that this is going to be off script in a way, but it's so interesting because exactly the last podcast that we did with Eric is a sleep guru lah. Not the exact same words, but all he said was that caregivers need to learn to be vulnerable.
Yes.
It's like everyone is just so, I got to do this myself. It's upon me, it's my responsibility.
I think because sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's an Asian culture. It's like you need to be filial, right? So if you are a filial daughter, you need to be there 24/7 by your dad's side.
Right.
You need to make sure that he's doing good. You need to make sure that everything is going well. this you need to, maybe it's an Asian culture, I'm not sure. So when you're on this mode of, I need to take care of this, I need to do that, you need to do this. And when people come in, sometimes it also means, when better reflection is like, you also need to think, when you reject someone's help, is it because you don't want to feel that you are not efficient? You don't want to feel that you're not adding value to your family. So in that journey, I learned accepting help is wisdom, not weakness.
Well said. So at 9 p.m., something extraordinary happened.
Mm.
Dad opened his eyes, he tried to communicate. He recognized his granddaughter, Twilight, I believe.
Yes.
And at that moment, what is it like for you? How was it like?
Okay, so he was wheeled out and back into ICU at 11:30 in the morning. So from 11:30 to 9 p.m., a lot of people went up to see him because he was still critical, so the hospital allowed more people. And so he was just closing his eyes and opening, closing. There was no sign of recognition yet at that point of time. So at 9 o'clock, when the crowd has all left and it was just me and my brother, and my daughter Twila was overseas, so she was in Indonesia on a mission trip. So then at 9 o'clock, when we saw him opening his eyes and he was gesturing, I just thought, okay, maybe we should give a call to my daughter, his favorite granddaughter, right? So we called, and immediately his eyes just lit up and he waved, and they spoke for maybe less than 30 seconds, but it was good enough. Yeah, but from there, it was a miracle because he started to gesture. Because his hands are tied because the tubes are in there, and he's not aware why he's there. So he tried writing in Mandarin.
Okay.
And thankfully, there was a nurse there that is experienced, and then the nurse was like, uncle, 你要写什么? So they gave him a board and a pen, and he wrote in Mandarin. So basically, he was just asking why was he there. So we could just explain the story to him. Yeah, and that itself was for me a miracle because, from having this expectation that he may not recognize us, he may, be like an empty shell in a way, to seeing him recognizing his granddaughter, seeing him being able to write
In Chinese?
in Chinese, yes, yeah. So that was a miracle, very great encouragement. But I think Sunday morning, the next day when we went to see him, it was funnier because this time round, I told him there's no nurse. I cannot understand your Mandarin, your Chinese. And I tested him. I said, can you write in English?
Okay.
So he wrote. So when he wrote in English, it really double confirmed that, okay, he's sound mind. He's of sound mind. But basically, he didn't know what happened to him. So for him, in his experience was, he went to bed on Friday night, and then next thing when he woke up, why is he in ICU?
One word you have always been using in this whole journey has been miracle. Okay. How has this experience changed how you see life, how you look at time, or even the things that we worry about?
I think keep life simple,
Okay.
and major on a major. There are certain things that's minor that you kind of. So now I find myself asking, I used to ask myself, will this thing bother me 5 years from now? I've changed the question to, will this thing bother me 5 minutes from now?
Okay.
Somebody brushes you off or look you, and you're thinking, see, you want to ask yourself, will this bother me for the next 5 minutes? Can it be something that I let go? So I think this whole miracle reset how you want to look at life, because when we left him on Friday in the hospital, he just had his medication done, and he was he was all free from asthma. He was all good. We were all joking when we left. So on Saturday morning, to see him in that state, really, it's a cliche lah, but it's really, life is really unpredictable.
That is true. That's true. I think these are good sharings whereby, like you say, right, if it 5 minutes later, if it doesn't bother you, why fret over it?
Yeah.
And I think quite often, especially in today's time and age where we have so much stimulants around us and so much things that's happening around us, we tend to get bothered by
Small things.
things that don't matter. Actually, like you said, 5 minutes later, you even forget about it.
Correct.
And why do you let it affect your mood and your,
Yeah.
how you're feeling at the point in time, right?
I mean, it's as simple as your mom wants to feed the medicine this way, and you feel that this is the right way, and everybody gets exasperated, right? For example. But sometimes when things like that happen, it makes you think, actually, does it really matter? what kind of method he takes, that he swallows the pill, and then you take a step and you realize actually it's okay. It's just that it's not according to the way that you
Your
want it,
preference,
right?
yeah.
So
But as
you
long as
learn
he
to let
does
it
it,
go.
it's fine, right?
Yeah, you learn to let it go.
That's true. That is true. Often people think that the crisis ends when the patient survives, but
Mm,
more often than not, it is the beginning of a new
yes.
phase, which is caregiving. What did caregiving look like after ICU, both
Mm.
emotionally and practically for your case?
So ICU, I think when he came out of ICU was the beginning. You're right, the beginning of caregiving. So I think there was a few things that we were looking at and became aware of. One of it was emotional care, because that's when he's more conscious and he's able to talk. And actually, after a long period, the elderlies, they can get quite discouraged. My father was in there for 2.5 months. So first round of ICU, he was still very positive. Second round of ICU, he was still okay. But the third time when he was in a danger, he was quite done. He was actually quite ready to give up, because he was very tired of this. I progressed 3 steps and then I go back 2
Like
steps. It's
cha-cha, like.
really quite discouraging. So emotional care was one. I think logistic load is another one. We really had to space ourselves out to, if my mom goes, then I'll take over her later, and then I need to then arrange logistic of who fetch her home, who picks her up, so that we can all be in the hospital at different time, so that we all get to have some rest in that way. So logistic was one. I think we have to change our lifestyle, because our lifestyle became no more nice dinners with our friends. Became work, hospital, appointments, meetings, and then, or sometimes even Zooming in the hospital, right? So there was a few changes that we had to look at in that way. Financially, I think because he was under Pioneer, and because also, again, it was a government hospital, so the nurses were really good. They just told us, just concentrate on looking after him first. We'll talk about the rest later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably, so you mentioned 3 things, like maybe 4 things: emotionally, logistically, your own, maybe I'll say day-to-day
Lifestyle change.
lifestyle changes.
I think the fourth thing is constant vigilance. It's like even after the caregiving, even after he's discharged from hospital, I think the key thing when he's back home is this thing called constant vigilance.
Which is interesting. This is something I want to talk about, because is this something that you will say that this constant vigilance is something that people don't realize until you become a caregiver?
Yes,
Then you start to be like, okay, I got to start watching out for all this.
definitely. I mean, I think I'm a very good example, because my parents stays with me, and all this while they've been very independent.
Right.
Right, they'll go marketing, they go walks on their own, and they lead their independent life, and I lead my independent life. And but once this crisis happened and he felt so sick, when he came home, it was a huge adjustment. I had to wake up the same time with them. I had to walk with them, because I don't think my mom can manage to hold him up when he's walking. I think the first few days of him being back home, because he didn't walk for 2.5 months, the muscles were all gone. The stamina was gone. So even when he walked with the walker, first 3 days, maybe 10 steps. And then he needs to sit on the wheelchair.
Okay.
And then I'll push him a while, and then he gets up for another 10 steps.
Right.
So it's and it's not just that. So when he goes home, so bring him out for a walk is relaxing, because it's just you walk, you sit. But I think when you go home, sometimes we tend to think, okay, I need to do my work, I need to go, do something else. And then when your dad gets up from the chair and he wants to go toilet himself, you'll be like, stop, like, let me come to you. So that kind of constant vigilance, actually, the tiredness comes in quietly.
Because you're always on and always watching.
Yes,
right?
because you're always watching. But because you're on high alert, you don't notice it. So the tiredness creeps in at a much later stage. Yeah.
So again, based on what our dear sleep guru, Mr. Eric, shared last week, when you learn to communicate with our body, if it tells you that
Yeah,
you're tired, take a break.
definitely.
Learn to take a
Yeah.
break, because you need to care for yourself before you can care for others, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think all these conversations we've been having, it also interestingly teaches me a lot of different things. That I think sometimes we fight ourselves. I'm tired, but can I take a coffee? I'm tired.
Yeah.
Let me take a Red Bull, for example. But
Yes.
if you're tired, you're tired.
Yes.
Accept it. Sometimes I think we always fight it, but I think it's we need to learn to accept it as well,
Yes,
right?
that's very, very true. Because I just went for me, I just went for a retreat on my own. So
Okay.
because now that my dad is a lot better and is very independent, I realized that wow. So it accumulated until now, and then I feel your body is telling you, okay. So I went for a lone trip and just 2 days, short
Okay.
2 days, no phone, no social media, nothing.
Just disconnect and
Just disconnect to connect to yourself.
recalibrate yourself,
Yeah,
right? That's so good. That's nice. That's
very good.
nice.
It's really very good.
No, I mean, your professional experiences in financial planning.
Mm.
So how has this experience sort of reshaped the way you personally view your financial planning?
So I think a lot of people talk about financial planning in theory.
Mm.
So when crisis like that happens, and then you realize that theory is just thrown out the window, and then you're left with the reality. And so the reality for us was really about caring for him, making sure that he survives, making sure my mom is okay. And so a lot of all this attention on all these details. And in a way, it shapes me to want to tell my clients or to tell my friends that when we tell you about financial planning, it may sound like a theory now, but when crisis happens, then all these theories that we talked about, you won't remember. But then at the base of it is I don't have to worry about who's making the decision. I don't have to worry about the bills. I just need to concentrate on making sure he gets well,
Right.
doing some soup that he can drink, get his health better.
So can I say that the financial clarity, in a way, gave you the advantage to be able to handle the emotional load better compared to if you didn't have it, you'd probably be worried about who's going to pay, how are we going to pay, can we afford this, will you get the best care? Ultimately, that's what we want for our family, for
Yes.
example. So having that, I would say, again, experience allows you to just focus on giving your dad the best care.
Yes.
Oh, that's good, that's good.
Mm.
So I think it's important that all of us should have at least a minimum amount of financial knowledge to know when something happens. We hope it doesn't, but inevitably, I think at some point in time, all of us will be faced with certain decisions,
Yes.
and we want to know that we are informed, and so that we can be prepared for what's about to happen, right?
Yes.
So, Serene, from a caregiver's perspective, what is financial planning really about beyond money and returns?
So for me, one of the things that as a financial planning for me is if I put it simply, in my point of view, is an extension of love. So
Okay, a very different perspective.
yeah, it's very different perspective because a lot of things are theory based. You calculate numbers, you calculate what ifs. But for me, when this happened to my dad and happened to some of my friends with their loved ones, I saw it more as an extension of love because if you had coverage, then that gave your family the takes off the stress and the burden, and then they can fully focus on you. And so I see financial planning to me is more than just numbers. It's really, okay, I love my family, like I love my daughter, and the last thing I want is to impose on her this stress about how she should look after me, where's the resources going to come from. So if I plan it well and she has all this in place for her, then I think that's my extension of my love for her.
That's a very, very good point. In fact, it's a very unique angle that I guess most people don't think about, again, until they're faced with certain challenges. And when you know that everything is well prepared, that's really giving your family the love that they deserve, right? So for caregivers or adult children listening right now, right, Serene, what's one conversation they shouldn't keep postponing with their parents?
I think the one conversation that we shouldn't postpone, but in Asian culture, we tend to think is a taboo, is two things. Okay, one is your end life decisions, your life end decision. Another one is your medical preferences. Right. When I talk about the end of life, meaning to say, if in the event that I'm no longer around, what do I want to leave behind? So legacy is a very overused word. I always want to think of it as what is it that I want to leave behind so that they can continue life, instead of having a different life because I'm no longer around. So that's one kind of end of life decisions that you need to make. Another kind is how do you want to structure your will? How do you want your assets to be distributed? That kind of conversation. I think it's very good and very important to talk about it because If you have one child, of course, everything goes to your child. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4, I think it's good for them to know what's on your mind and how you distribute it, so that they don't have this guessing game. Why did that give this and not that? Yeah. And it's a conversation that you can talk them through and, let them know what's on your mind and what's on your heart.
But you're right to say that. I think especially for the Asian family, Asian context, right? The first is taboo, definitely. I can see that happening already in my
Yes.
own context. But how do you even approach that subject to, let's say, your elderly parents? Because to them, they don't even want to talk about it. Then how do you even address the elephant in the room when they're constantly avoiding it?
So for my parents, because they are Christian, so
Okay.
I think being a Christian, for them, they kind of know where they're heading.
Right.
So death wasn't such a taboo subject for us. Yeah. I could, in a morbid way, even ask my dad, so what's the favorite song you want to play at your funeral? And he would tell you Amazing Grace. So in a way, that part wasn't so taboo. But I have experienced friends that feel that simply by writing a will, it's as if they're cursing themselves or their family. Yeah. And I have to sit them down to ask them, if something really happens to you today, then actually what would be your desired goal? What would you have wanted to tell your son? What would you have wanted to tell your daughter? What would you have wanted to tell your spouse or your parent? And if they can tell me what they want to tell, then the next step is, if you want to tell them you love them, then what is it that you want to leave behind for them? So the legacy can also be the love or the values that you give them, not just monetary insurance. Right. So when they are able to tell you all these things, you got yourself, in a nutshell, what is it that they want to leave behind?
I'm curious. Would it be easy? Is it always easier through a third party than between the family itself?
Sometimes yes.
Okay.
Sometimes yes. Sometimes I do have people that they prefer that a facilitator comes in to kickstart that topic, because it's just not easy for them. So it depends on family dynamics, actually.
Okay.
I realize.
So I want to close this with this last sentence, which I want you to finish off for me, right? So the starting of the sentence is, what seems impossible today
Can be a testimony for tomorrow.
Beautiful. So when crisis strikes, love shows up immediately. But clarity, emotional, practical, financial, determines how heavily or how heavy that journey becomes. Serene's story reminds us that miracles can happen, and preparation allows families to focus on hope and not panic when they do. So if any of you want to hear more stories about her caregiving journey, feel free to reach out to Serene directly. Serene, thank you for sharing your faith, your stories, your fear, and your gratitude with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.